So please begin your submission.
O kia ora koutou katoa kanu te mihi atu kia koutou i tēnei wā, I runga I tēnei kaupapa. Tino nui I wainganui a mātou ngā iwi, ngā hapu, ngā whānau hoki o Aotearoa. No reira tēnā koutou katoa. I just want to let the select committee know that I have the chair of the Kohao Health with us today, and the chair of Waitangi, who are executive members of NUMA, as well as other colleagues that are sitting behind in support of our submission today, including John Tomahere, the CEO for NUMA. Te Kohao Health and the National Urban Māori Authority strongly reject and oppose this bill, alongside of the 42,000 plus that marched to Parliament from all over this country in opposition to the bill. Te Tiriti o Waitangi is the foundation document of this country. It is a compact, an agreement between iwi Māori and the Crown to govern over our own. It is not one country, one size fits all for everyone. We all were an independent nation prior to the signing of the Tiriti o Waitangi, and yet we sit and have to listen to a whole lot of people telling us we don't belong here. Replacing the treaty principles with notions of civil government, equality, and historic rights is an attempt by this coalition government to rewrite the treaty in favour of itself in order to retain power and control. Further, it is designed to subjugate, humiliate, assimilate, and oppress iwi Māori. It is simply absurd to believe or even to think that at the time of the signing of the Treaty o Waitangi, that approximately 2,000 Māori ceded our sovereignty to 2,000 colonialists from England. To put the record straight, Māori never ceded sovereignty to the Crown or to Paaka colonisers. The late Moana Jackson described sovereignty as the inherent authority of a people to govern themselves. And that's what the treaty was all about when it was signed by our tipuna all those years ago. And it doesn't matter how you want to dress it up or how you want to minimise it, it happened. The treaty was signed by two parties to look after themselves. Sovereignty can only be ceded through explicit agreement, military conquest, or other clear acts of surrender. Well, none of these conditions apply to the relationship between Māori and the Crown under Te Tiriti. The proposed bill ignores this fundamental truth and perpetuates the systematic denial and oppression of Māori tino rangatiratanga, self-determination. It breaches Te Tiriti by the Crown and successive governments have been the breaches of the Crown and successive governments have been well documented in every report written by the Waitangi Tribunal throughout the 50 years of its existence. Furthermore, it concerns us greatly, and it should concern you too, that this government intends to take away every reference to Te Tiriti o Waitangi in every piece of existing legislation to nullify our right to justice in this country. These actions and the bill are a stark reminder of the Wiparata and Bishop of Wellington case of 1877, when Judge Prendergast declared Te Tiriti worthless and a simple nullity. The previous principles from the Court of Appeal case and the New Zealand Māori Council and the General Attorney in 1987, the SOE case, developed the 3 Ps of partnership, participation and protection. The Waitangi Tribunal Howard Report Y2575 in 2019 reinforced this in the current principles of the guarantee of tino rangatiratanga, partnership, active protection, equity and options. Te Tiriti o Waitangi is essential in addressing the systematic inequities faced by Māori, not only in health, but in every facet of this society. These principles demand a genuine partnership, the active protection of Māori rights, equitable treatment, and the provision of culturally relevant options. The government's proposed principles completely ignores this, in contradiction to the articles of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Article 1, Kāwanatanga. Māori agreed to share governance with the Crown, expecting partnership based on mutual respect and good faith. Article 2, Tino rangatiratanga. The Crown guaranteed Māori their full authority over their lands, resources, taonga, affirming their sovereignty. Article 3, Oritetanga. The Crown promised to protect Māori rights and provide equal treatment, ensuring equality in all aspects of society. The coalition government's bill disregards the fundamental articles, undermining the Crown's obligations and eroding the partnership that the treaty guarantees. Limiting Māori rights to historical settlements disregards the living nature of Te Tiriti. It erases the Crown's ongoing obligations and silences our voices in matters that directly impact on our whānau, hapu and iwi. This approach undermines the mana of Māori communities of the National Urban Māori Authority and all of those who live away from their tribal regions. It perpetuates racism, white supremacist views, and inequities that colonization has entrenched over generations because of historical and ongoing injustices that continue to be perpetuated. The Coalition's government's bill prioritised a one-size-fits-all approach that ignores these realities in breach of our human rights as Indigenous people of this country and completely disregards Te Tiriti o Waitangi and relegates Māori to second-class citizens in our own country. I wish also to acknowledge and support the submissions made by the King's Council of this country and the Law Society. In conclusion, the Select Committee must honour the true intent of Te Tiriti o Waitangi and reject and oppose this bill. The committee must ensure that the jurisdiction of the Waitangi Tribunal and the courts remain protected from such blatant interference and from this and successive governments. It must uphold the principles of the guarantee of tino rangatiratanga, partnership, active protection, equity, and options. And it must recognise the need for targeted measures to address systematic inequities rather than a blanket approach that perpetuates continuous disadvantage. And finally, must guarantee that Māori voices are central to the decisions that impact our whānau, hapu, iwi, and communities to reflect the true partnership of Te Tiriti. Nō reira, anei taku kōrero kia koutou katoa, tēnā koutou katoa.
That's all the time we have, so just acknowledge your submission and thank you all for being with us today.
Kia ora.
Well, it's a shame there's no questions with that submission.
Yeah, it's always better when you get time for questions, but when you have a good, solid, well-spoken argument like that, it's reasonable that you don't give people the, I don't know, I guess, chance.
The opportunity to pick it all apart?
Yeah.
Yes, well, we definitely know what happened to Gary Judd on that one.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Wayne, you've made it after getting stuck trying to get through Restream.
Yep. I tried to get it a couple of times, and then the third time it let me in.
Hey, third time's a charm. Look at that.
Yep.
Gee, that sounds like what you call when your chip don't work on your FPOS card.
There's happened to be a number of times. One of the things I found interesting was when it came to oral submissions, with all the submissions made, how did they choose the people that made oral submissions? Because I tried to request a number of different ways to speak orally to my submission, and I was met with a no several times, but there was a group of us that tried to do it as well. So that was one of the things I was thinking, who chooses? Is it a fair process to the people that are chosen?
I've heard, but I don't know, it was something like, it wasn't the first of select committee processes, because these were the ones that typically tend to always be heard at submissions of some sort.
Yep.
But I have heard it was something like the parties were allowed to put up 100 submissions of who they wanted to hear from. So each party got to pick 100 people because there were so many submissions.
Yeah. And
then it was something like the remaining gaps were like basically picked out of a hat, or probably had the name put into a random name picker, and just basically pick 50 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I found interesting about doing a number of submissions is in the last few decades, when it comes to submissions, I think I've taught people to do 3, and it's such an arduous task about getting people to do a submission. But this time around, after the hikoi, and there was a movement to urge people to do submissions, I was really pleased with the amount of submissions that were submitted. It was really groundbreaking. But also, what I found historically is when you had a protest, often everyone got up in arms about the protest, and then after the fact, there was no follow-through. And so the result of this, having a pre-planned follow-through after the fact, was really successful. And also knowing that Hobson's Pledge, their goal was to get 100,000 submissions in, that gave us a goal to hit. You know what I mean? So it was good to see how many people were doing submissions, and also I used AI to help me in a process so people could independently do their own submission that wasn't a cut and paste. And I found that sped up the process markedly, because the people I did a submission with, they were able to go and do 10 or 20 with their whānau. And so it made it way easier after the fact. And so I'm going to be using that from now
Yeah,
on.
I needed that because I've put in 2 submissions on 2 different bills, and no, I didn't use any AI to write them out actually. And one of them I'm off to Parliament tomorrow to do, which to orally submit is the Social Securities Amendment Bill, which brings in the sanctions and all that sort of stuff. And I said, and basically my submission is, you're providing solutions to a perceived problem, but you're not actually fixing the real problem that leads to the biggest disconnect. And like, a person can't even dispute, like in that way case, a sanction on my MSD. You can't even do it. You have to ring them up to dispute a sanction, but you can't ring up my MSD all the time because the call centers are overloaded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you sit there and go, oi, you got this wrong? And it's like, oi, you got this wrong. You know, and then what happens next? You know, you might end up having to repeat what happened in Ashburton. But besides the point, we're talking trade principles, not Social Security's legislation.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, News Guide, the Order Paper Podcast.